Welcome to Zoom. Please press pound, then enter your meeting ID followed by the pound sign again. Five, 8, 2, 4, 2, 7, 1, 8, 8. You are in the Zoom meeting now. This meeting is being recorded.
That they're available, the chairs.
Yes.
Ich kann diese Flipcharts noch holen, diese Sticky. Also, und wie macht man das dann?
Da muss man die Kamera drehen.
Und noch näher ranholen, weil die
Aber die muss man ja irgendwo festmachen.
blockiert den Kamera, den Beamer.
Da geht es in Details. Mal festmachen.
So reicht mit dem Beton da hinten, das ist schwer genug.
Also deine Images kommen nicht auf diese Wand. Oder schon?
Ach so.
Also die haben sie mit runtergebracht und es wäre natürlich.
Kann sie da oben hängen. Aber dann ist natürlich ein bisschen doof.
Also
wenn er
eins
dann-
passt drauf. Also oder zwei übereinander. Oder
Oder
kleben drüber.
so auf den
Bodenweg.
ja, aber das finde ich
Wir haben doch Nadeln. Können Sie da nicht brauchen.
weiß nicht. Kann man immer versuchen. Dann, ich glaube, vielleicht gibt es Nadeln hier drin. Wenn nicht, dann nehme ich noch mit. Ja, das war dann vielleicht im Büro. Ja, das alles mit. Ich dachte, dann brauchst du das. Ja, okay, Nadeln. Das einfach hinten.
Der Zoom-Ton ist echt doof.
Also anscheinend hört man den nicht mehr.
Wenn es dann laut ist.
Ja.
Denkst du, Otto möchtest noch was mit dem Haus machen? Weil ich habe so Idee, erste 30 Minuten bevor Live-Session einfach eine Runde, was ist jetzt, was machst du jetzt? Also ist es jetzt live, ne? Prototype oder Idee oder was auch immer? Ein Zeitsatz pro Person. Und dann nachher eine Evaluation. Was war wertvoll hier? Was hattet ihr noch gewünscht?
Das ist
Im
gleich
ULAB
für Otto.
Hier in
Und dann muss man
Hub.
gucken,
Aber wir können natürlich auch die
schauen, wie man das
Frage,
überhaupt
das war in ULAB wertvoll. Und
zeigt, weil wenn die Wand so ist.
Finde ich besser, weil so viele Leute nicht
Müssen wir
regelmäßig
die
da
Kamera
waren.
nehmen?
Und der Otto hier ist ja.
Ja, das ist ja gut.
Fragen wir ihn dann gleich noch.
The ones upstairs? Yeah, and you need my.
Nachher ist auch Raum 3.
Wird man halt.
Also
Wir sind
das,
auch auf
das heißt, da
Sendung.
muss man
Ah,
dann
nee.
halten.
Hello, I'm there too.
Soll ich noch so einen Stehtisch holen, dann kann man das nach oben stellen. Das ist dafür,
Wenn er daran geht.
ja,
Ja, vielleicht.
also wenn der Benjamin sich noch meldet, Otto kommt, die restliche Frage hat sich erledigt. Kaffee ist schon, ich brauche keine Gläser, also
Ah,
wenn du nochmal extra Exercise-Box? Nein? Brauchst du noch was von
Ich auch, weil dieses,
Nein?
aber ich
Der unanspruchsvoll.
denke, ab nach aufbauen. Also noch
Hier nicht.
In der Box nicht. Haben wir irgendwo Nadeln, Serena? Nee, ne?
Ja, ich hoffe, oben gibt es ein paar, also ich habe ein paar rote Nadeln gesehen und die nehme ich einfach mit.
Hi!
Und dann
That's great. So now we have the camera view to that screen, which shows us. That's indefinite. Goes back and forth. You see this little
Yeah,
tile there?
yeah. Yeah,
So it must go crazy in here. Do we? Falls Sie sich anfangen zu melden. Wenn du hier drauf drückst, Flip.
Dann können die uns hören. Das heißt, es ist nicht mit Mute und Unmute.
Doch, kann man auch machen, aber man kann es auch einfach anlassen, weil dann.
Ich glaube, sie ist gerade auf dem Weg.
Okay, dann ist ja auch okay.
Dann ist ja weg.
La 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 la.
Switch slides. in from Dublin, California. My name is Hisako Pradhan.
My name is
Calling in from Dublin, California. My name is Hisako Pradhan.
My name is
Calling in from Dublin, California. My from Dublin, California. My name is Hisako Pradhan.
My name is Jessica, and I'm the National Coordinator for Zambia, as well as Africa Coordinator for Ubuntu Lab.
This is Jens Oberender from the Cologne area in Germany.
Hello, my name is Agnès Mignani and I live in France.
Hello, my name is Trisha Kira.
My name is Eric Tananaigan, and I'm here from Montreal, Canada.
I'm Fernando from Colombia.
Hello everyone, my name is Frodo. I'm the founder of Crazy About Water.
My name is Gemma Jiang.
My name is Stephanie Romero, and we're the co-hosts of the University of Pittsburgh's ULAB Hub.
Hello, my name is Ishwa. I am in Mendoza, Argentina.
Lakshmi Kennedy. I represent the New Future Society.
I'm a community energy activist working on a solar project called Lockleys Love Solar, which has grown out of 4 years of ULAB prototypes.
I come from Cambodia.
My name is Maria Antonieta Angarica.
And I'm Nancy Gutierrez. We are teachers from Universidad Metropolitana. Ana in Caracas, Venezuela.
Hello, my name is Carlos Lucio. I'm from Mexico.
My name is Joel. I live in Ottawa, Canada.
This is Erin from Oaxaca, Mexico.
I'm Teresa from Malaysia.
Good evening from the UK.
This is Tero from Finland.
This is Jorge Sanin from Guadalajara and Jalisco in Mexico.
Hi, my name is Miklós from Hungary.
We have been writing letters with observations, feelings, needs, and questions, inviting to reflect and listening to different actors of our ecosystem in Lima.
My prototype is to spread kindness in our society.
One example is in Kolola. This was a woman who went through a disability temporarily, and during that moment she was able to go through the entire U process and developed a prototype where currently she is working with physically challenged women in the agriculture sector. These smallholder farmers are blind, some of them are widows, and they're being helped with mentorship skills and also with access to market.
My opportunity is to give awareness into body tensions and relaxation.
My prototype is about putting together a team to deliver skills and capacities with the notions of presence at the center.
My little seed to help leaders getting a more authentic and meaningful management style.
Our prototype seeks to address animal parasite resistance at the European level.
The prototype I'm currently working on is called Let Us Vote. It challenges the status quo of democratic participation of foreigners who don't live in their country of origin.
My prototype is whole systems embodied intelligence, learning and leading from the inside out.
How can I change the dynamic relationship between my brothers and I?
Prototypes such as improving student mental health, introducing entrepreneurship.
1 2 1 2 1 2 2 1 2 2 1 2 1 2. Yell for me when you know, because I just a rug. You can see the shot, so you get that. This mic is on. This mic is on. One, two, two, one, two, 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 one, two, one, two. 1, 2.
Yeah, Otto will do his own slides because now they're in PowerPoint for him. He's not using Google, he's going to be making the PowerPoint slides with me now. For Tony? What? But that was way long before. Yeah.
I know he interpreted it before.
So we now had a little bit of a pause when you said let's do all slides in Google. What was playing on in my brain? That's what was playing on out in my brain. It was, I was kind of like.
Yeah.
Was like, okay.
But it's been easier for us also when he's doing something.
Yeah.
We can do the video.
Maybe
So
easier.
yeah, it's easier for us.
Ideally, Otto would say regional.
The visual is easier for a business with non-production.
I totally agree, and I also know how Otto works or engineers things.
Yeah.
And we're not going to just like pick up a piece of template or even on a slide. It's nice to, hear his ability to, think about it differently. No. I'm putting it on really lightly. So it should just.
And then if you could just turn yours on now as well, and I'm happy to help you dress these and stuff.
Yeah.
We're just in the middle of something else.
Is this worse than seeing the stickers?
I'm gonna let you see what it looks like.
Might be. I think probably will be.
It is worse.
Do you want to see that camera?
Yes, please. Get rid of our toilet. It's better. The stickers are really blaring. Okay. Where you don't really notice.
They just look like a very punk rock kind of computer.
I don't know if it's my eyes. I can't actually see. All I can see is that it was black. Oh. Don't worry. I don't think this is going to break your stickers.
Maybe it does. But the person who they're for EFLI, so I can get more of them.
Oh, that would have
This
been
is
a better way
Antoinette.
to do it.
Okay. This is
All the way to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, Antoinette is Angela is ready to talk. So.
Hi, Angela.
Can you hear us, Angela?
No, she can't. She can't. Yeah.
Stick mic. Stick mic.
So is Olaf also scribing, or is Otto just doing?
Stick mic is on. Stick mic is on.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Stick mic is good.
Looks like he
Stand
is.
by. We're gonna test that Revo.
You took my mic from here?
Yes.
It's running through audio. I didn't see.
I feel like we should all be in Berlin because he's doing. This is getting
1,
onto the
2,
actual
3, 4. 1, 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, can Berlin hear us?
If I can. No, they can't seem to hear us.
Angela, can you hear us? Not if you can.
Angela, can you hear us? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
She can hear us?
Also, no one's mentioned doing like the hashtag for questions. What information do I need to write on the board for Slido or email? Do I need to put up like the email address and?
Maybe the other than the donation link or something.
Well, hashtag ULAB, right?
Hashtag as usual. Yeah.
Well,
but we are not using Twitter this time, like live.
So we don't need.
Yeah. I think we should.
Basically, what will you be monitoring? Because it's whatever's coming to you.
It's everything is on Slido, so.
Okay. So people just need. What do they need to get on Slido? Anything? Nothing. They're just.
The question is there, and.
Can you hear us now?
Oh, yes. Now we can. Yes. Hi.
So yeah. So make sure you're comfortable with toggling that off and on, because now you sound wonderful. That's great, Rod. You got that right?
So Kelvin, maybe the only message for.
Oh. Sorry.
Yep. It's okay.
Otto's redrawing the whole chart.
Lehn dich mal nicht nach vorne, weil wir müssen ja gucken. Können die uns wirklich verstehen?
What is Otto doing?
Jetzt gerade, theoretisch müsste es jetzt gehen.
Tony?
Yeah?
Could you tell us if you can hear us well?
We can hear you well. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Now
And
it's
Eva and
different.
Antoinette?
Can you hear us? Okay.
No.
No, you can't hear us.
No, we don't hear you at all.
Huh.
Hello.
I am on. Okay, but I don't think they can hear me
Now,
in Germany. Can you hear me now?
we could just hear you before where you said I am on and where you leaned to the side, but now we don't understand.
Really? So when I went like this, it was okay? Like this, not okay. Sure, yeah.
So do you want to take it and just run it?
I would take one or two of them. Can I have the one with the black top over here? Thank you.
Your mic is on, Antoinette?
Okay. So my mic's on. I don't know if you can
go for it. That's okay that the cables are coming across.
It is.
It's on the front though.
It is.
Too complicated.
Think of all those.
A little bit. You
Yeah.
don't see it?
Okay.
I'm going to get you a little bit of gap just to tap that in place.
I could also loop the cord up and under if that.
You're comfortable. Part of it is
Cannot
the
hear Antoinette.
body pack was on the other side. You'd be good.
Okay.
Can they hear you now?
Can you hear me now, Angela?
I think Eva,
Yeah.
we could hear you now.
Okay. Because I'm on.
Nee.
Okay.
Nee, now not anymore.
But now not anymore.
Internet connection. It's
Yeah.
not a function.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
That's better.
Yeah.
So I think
Something's
definitely,
weird.
if we have questions, we say, here are 2 questions, and leave it. We don't want back and forth
It seems like it's
because they're hearing me, not hearing me.
Right now to Angela through the Slack chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I will
Do you want me
write
to do
them
that?
the questions
I can
when
do
you,
it, but
just in
they have
case.
Slack open right here.
Okay.
The only person who
They're
can
not
hear
answering.
consistently
Like
is
I
Antonia.
answered something.
But Angela, you can hear me
answered
well,
it.
right?
So, okay.
We can only hear you, no one else really.
Angela, can you hear me?
So maybe the questions get sent through you,
No,
Tony?
let's get the audio
Okay.
fixed. We're not doing it, so Tony's doing it.
Kevin said it's an internet issue.
The
But
two
there's no
ladies are
reason
not.
for Tony to be able to be heard, but we
True.
can't be heard. So we need to get that fixed. And if not, we switch mics with Tony. Should we switch mics with Tony because they can hear him, but they can't hear us?
Off of that?
Yeah. So
Really? That's exciting.
But I think we hear you through your computer mic because you're logged into Zoom as well.
But I think nobody's off. My Zoom mic is off. It's not on.
Yeah, it's muted. Sorry, yeah. That's true.
So we're trying to get the mic.
So you
fixed.
just have to repeat everything Eva said.
So, so this is a mic check. Can you hear this mic, Berlin? 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
4.
Very well.
Very well. Okay.
So they can't hear ours.
So this is another mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hear us, Berlin? Okay.
Yes.
So, I'm really not sure why, but.
Yeah, what they told us that these mics need to be like laying, not like these, or don't hold it.
Right there.
Like that, pointing to you, and with the green light.
Yeah.
So you click and now it's green, so now
Okay.
they are working.
Can you hear us better now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Woohoo!
me too.
Wonderful.
And if you stand, then maybe you pick the other one.
Yeah, okay, good.
If you want to just count to 10.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
How is that, Berlin?
Speak up.
Berlin, can you hear that?
Yes,
Okay, great.
we can.
All right.
Should I count too? Or you...
Okay, yeah.
This is our Zoom.
Okay,
I go on screen share. And then, you know what? I need to close all the other junk.
Especially all the messages.
Das heißt, das mal. Hast du das gefunden?
Ich habe es dir nochmal weitergeleitet. Ich
Ah, ja.
müsste jetzt sozusagen mal wieder oben an derselben Mail sein.
Mhm.
Okay.
Was davon brauchst du denn?
Ich brauche eigentlich nur eine Sache für den ganzen Junk hier.
Also die Design Slides.
Angela,
Achso, ja, ich will das Design Slide, nur das.
Das schicke ich dir nach per SMS.
So I'm wondering during the session, I'm assuming they're going to control the sound, but so that we're not hearing Berlin.
Yeah, you have to mute them.
they have a toggle there to turn their audio on and off in Berlin. And they told them to.
You want us to turn our audio off? Yes?
Well,
Yeah, can you hear us, Angela, now in the room?
they can on
They
the
can hear, yeah,
mics
from
right
these
here.
these mics sitting here.
So, Angela, I think we need to be really careful with the muting. Because, like, when you're.
Das ist die,
When we what? What did you say, Kelly?
We need to be really careful with your muting. You need to
Yes.
be careful with the muting because hearing you in the room is quite loud.
Yeah, that I mean, that was now for testing. We will be off unless audio is on.
Okay, perfect.
Can we test the audio?
Yeah. From
Your slides.
And Kevin?
Tony. Are the Google Slides updated with auto slides?
Yeah.
Just in case.
I included his 5 slides, yeah.
Keep working
Just
on
in
it.
case we
Yeah.
for
In
But
either
I
way,
know
so I can move
Mexico
through.
has been no changes, but that's
For
good.
mothers whose babies have
Okay.
passed away at any
But-
point in their gestation or right after birth.
Many of you will know that Extinction Rebellion was born here in Stroud, and this place is absolutely crackling with
And the video is working, right, Antoinette? And the sound is working.
Thank you for the audio from your laptop.
Thank you. Okay, Otto and Angela, just to double, triple check, Otto is toggling his own slides.
That's correct. Yes.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you lean back?
You need to be close.
Yeah,
near to
we
the
can hear
microphone,
you.
yeah.
Can Otto practice toggling his slides so we can see them? So we can see them,
Can you practice toggling your slide for us?
just so we can see it change from.
Yeah, I'm going to do it now. So you're now what are we seeing now? You guys, right?
Yes, I
Right.
can close it so you. There you go.
Okay, so that's how we start.
Start with me, right? This one.
Okay. So this is Antoinette's slides.
Yes.
I'm not.
So can I see Otto's slides? They should pop up there.
Yeah. Just share screen, Otto.
Otto, share your screen,
Please.
please.
And then it's.
So I'm expecting him to go away and his slides. to
We
be
will.
up there.
We're asking him to share his screen, so that
I think
we
he's
can
trying
see.
to.
Yeah.
I am sharing the screen. You're not seeing it?
I
No.
can see them here on my Zoom here, but not there.
It's a problem.
It is a problem.
And it's not behind.
1 second. They
Why
said
is it that I am
It's
seeing
hard to see because
this
they need to
their
switch it
slides?
and that's all.
You
Yeah.
are still on screen share mode. You need to go.
No, it's there. See, that's their tile. It's showing the. It's now on speaker view. So if
Yeah.
you go in gallery view, it's just like a Zoom session always, and they have.
Yeah, Antoinette has them too.
They just have on their computer that, but that doesn't mean that this is being shown instead of a face.
Okay, I go to screen share.
yes.
Share.
Yeah.
You see that?
No, but we're gonna. I think they're working to try and switch the view because we can't see what. We see your face
I
still.
see them on my laptop.
But Tony sees it on your laptop, so you're doing it right. It's just we need
They
to
have to.
we need to fix it in the tech in the back.
Leave the screen sharing on.
Just for you to know, we have a plan B, which is Antoinette toggles the slides, but we are trying to fix it.
Okay, I think I need to send you the most recent version.
Okay. Yeah, just in case. Oh, we see it.
You see it?
We see it. Yes.
There, but not.
Flip, flip.
So when we start, I will start here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
We
then-
see it.
All right, that's good.
What's your next one? What could it look like?
And flip to the next one. Why is the Zoom session recorded? It's supposed to be.
Okay, that's good.
And next one,
Okay, great.
next one, next one. That's it.
That's working.
Super.
Wonderful.
Talk.
Perfect.
Over to you. And then you do what? So
And then I
remind me
do-
remind me what you do before and after.
So right before we do this, Eva is going to share our journey. I'll have shared the agenda. She'll share our journey and the arc of what we've done, including a little bit about all of the sessions.
Yeah, so the arc will be one, just a brief description of what we've done through the U, and then looking at the three visual scribing from the 3 live sessions.
And,
Okay.
and Olaf.
And Olaf's presence, yeah.
So, and
Okay.
then you go, and then we come back in, and I'm going to turn it to asking what questions are you sitting with, and moving us into the compilation video prototypes.
Otto still sharing his slides?
Otto, are you,
just stopped.
Otto, are you
Can I
still?
see them one more time, please?
Could you put your slides up one more time, please?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Share.
Yes, this isn't about what I'm doing right now. I can't talk about it.
There it is.
Yeah, they're up. Thank you. Beautiful. We see it. Good.
Maybe we'll keep them up.
Continue
Okay.
to share. Please continue
That's
to
it.
share.
Okay, we'll just keep them up.
All right.
Just keep them up.
We see them in here, we're trying to
Come out.
find it.
But that's my last one.
Okay, just please keep it up until we tell you to take it down. But for now,
No,
yeah.
the nation wasn't yet.
Yeah, they're just figuring out to make sure that we have the right channel, I guess, to come in. So.
So did you share this?
I
to
sent
me?
it with as the SMS. Maybe it's
SMS,
on the. I thought it might be easier then.
Yeah.
So, Otto, could you make sure that you share the most recent version of the slides just so that we have them just in case?
No.
You will do it now.
Thank you.
Muted us.
Okay. That's great. Yeah.
You are free to make it. Otto, I'm clear with. Thank you very much.
Otto, you're clear. We don't need to share them anymore. Thank
your
you.
slides full screen, no spreadsheets, nothing else.
All right, all right.
That you're supposed to have.
All these instructions.
There we go.
We're gonna go live in
Oh,
just a few
what
minutes.
happened to you?
Okay, and everything else right now
Can
we
we-
have everything.
Can we check one more thing? Just that. I just want to make sure. So I have his slides, but then I just want to make sure that when I press play on the video in the slides, that it plays and we have the audio.
Go for it.
We don't have the audio.
Are you
This
playing
is
it
the
now?
audio. Yeah. It's playing right now.
This is a minor detail. When you do the mindfulness, do you want to come here to be? You're okay. Sit behind a computer doing mindfulness. Isn't that weird?
I can just go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Close all the way.
And I just sit here with you, or step away? And
Sit
you
with me.
Have your moment.
Be mindful with me.
And then we do it together. Okay, let's do it together. That works. That works. Yeah. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Oh, do not disturb over here.
Timing is the. You have that sheet just in case, because I have it on my computer. Yeah, and it's okay to keep it here, right? Yeah. Hang on to it.
Because this is a YouTube version. If it doesn't work, then I need to. Then I'm gonna need to exit out and open the video, which is okay. But I just want to know.
Yeah, for sure, because we don't want to be doing that here. The only shame with this is that this guy is now after Jessica, and Jessica's is so deep, right? Like women with disabilities in Africa, and then he's talking.
Don't even think about that. Don't even think about it. Just be glad it's in there.
Yes.
9:43 a.m. We have a video.
It's
Got
true.
all people.
It's got all that.
All the people.
All the people. And look, they're wonderful
And they're
people.
beautiful
doing wonderful
people.
things. So that's what we're doing this for. That's.
They're all perfect. Perfect video.
For our perfect life session. Our perfect full moon life session.
Exactly.
Sugar and full. That's what I thought when the cookie thing came in. I thought this morning, I'm like, full moon, sugar highs. We are gonna have.
I'm gonna hop in the car and hope it all works out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell them that WhatsApp might be best because I have
Okay.
WhatsApp open.
Eva, what do you want written on this behavior?
Really,
Essential.
just the main points, because I'm going to try and be very brief, and I'm
Okay.
so I'm
Just
going
tell me what you want. Yeah. Sorry.
co-sensing,
Okay, cool.
co-initiating,
Sorry.
co-sensing, presencing, co-creating. Yeah. Maybe co-evolving.
I'm gonna do a backup on this. Just, I'm getting it and then I'm not getting
Okay.
it.
So I have it on my computer. So what I'll do is when we go to the video, I will just open the actual video on my computer and not have this open and press play on here.
So when you press play, I'm not hearing it, is my challenge. So what I was
Not
going
from either of them now.
Try playing it just from your computer.
Yeah, I am now.
That's good. Perfect. I did these a little bit scrunched, but I'm just going to add an orientation just as like a, so that it looks like I didn't mess up.
Perfect. I feel like it should be
Is there a way
here.
just to get the speakers on the Mac itself without everything else? So if you were going to listen to it yourself, so you would change
I would have to take the
sound.
HDMI out.
Well, if you go to your sound
Yeah, it
preferences.
could be
Yeah, I can do that.
2019. I mean, it could be any ULAB 1X.
Oh, then I can just do internal speakers.
Yeah, and turn up the volume on that.
My name is Bethany Romero, and we're the co-hosts of the University of Pittsburgh's ULAB Hub.
Hello, my name is Ishwan.
Right here.
I am a docent in Kiev.
Lakshmi Kennedy, and
Just
I'm
in
a to society.
I'm a community energy.
Okay.
And just don't sing along.
La 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 la.
Yeah.
With
We're
all
not
of
getting
the
it,
Zoom
and
and
we're not
the-
getting it, and then it's bouncing back and forth.
Totally understand.
So this is a very simple way to just to ensure you have sound. Is just
Perfect.
leave that there.
So I'm going to
Just
try.
don't sing along. Yeah.
Shall I try to do it from the YouTube streaming, or should I just try to do it from the computer?
Does this play right inside your PowerPoint?
Yes.
You should be able
The
to
YouTube,
do it.
no, the YouTube that plays right inside the PowerPoint. The file on my computer.
Play it off your computer
Okay.
locally, I think is probably the safest.
I agree with you. So I'm going to open that in full screen.
Okay, I'm just like super focused.
And we need to do this right? We need.
Yeah.
We're basically going to go live. Yeah.
Okay.
Now?
That's right. We're going to put up our main super Welcome to ULAB screen.
Or we could actually put it up on me now, so people can
I think that's terrific. We can do that.
Nice.
So ride camera 4, please.
It's how they test in all the remote locations that it's live.
But our sound isn't being captured right now, right? So the conversations we're having.
These mics are open.
Anybody out there can hear what we're
I
doing.
turned them off.
You've turned them on? Okay.
I turned them off.
Off. Okay, great. I'm going to get a drink of water. I hope my thing is let me get something on the wall.
I just remembered, and it may be fine, but it may not be. So.
Okay. Can you just count to 5 real quick?
Should I turn the mic on?
You don't have to worry about that. Not that mic. Oh, yes. Your lab.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
cool.
10.
And count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great.
Great. And actually, yeah, let's turn that. Let's try this real quick. Here's the screen. You're hearing this? Check 1, 2. Great. Okay. And you're hearing this? Very. Great. Cool. One more mic check. I don't want to cough. There we go. It was actually. Can you hear me now? It's on the phone. Hey, Barry. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So just turn this one off. When it's green, it's on.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Do you think I should sit here and point behind me? Yes. It's already done. No doubt. I could stand up. Don't go back there. Oh.
It feels right in the moment, but I would say the
Let's stay
light.
here.
Yeah, I
Hey,
would say
Barry.
the light looks really dark when you go back
You go
there.
back
So
there.
it's like me. It's more focused on me,
Okay.
and I'm going to be sitting there. So it's much better if you're sitting next to me. and
Okay,
smiling.
doing something.
You can hear me?
With the, yeah, and I can move over to the side a little
Okay.
bit just to look
All
with
right.
you, but
Can I? Yeah.
Yeah, but you were hearing it?
yeah.
It just doesn't light up. Probably mic is off. It's off right now.
Thank you.
A few minutes away.
All righty.
Great.
Thanks. Thanks, Mark.
She said, we can hear you. Us. Hi. taking a signal that we're on? Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our final session of 2019 ULAB. It's been a joy to be with you for the last few months, and we are ready to celebrate our journey together in our time for this next hour. So we have an incredible team with us today, both here in the room at MIT, and also we have our team in Berlin, who will be coming in shortly. So we have myself, Antoinette.
I'm Eva. Hi.
Kelvy, who's joining us, and Tony over here. Tony ran over to say hi. And we have Otto out in Berlin with some of the team, Angela, Olaf, and others. So we are very grateful also to the team who has been holding the tech, and also behind the scenes there are many, many people who we've shown you before who are holding this with us. So a very warm welcome to you all joining us from all different parts of the world. And today we will be sharing our journey to date. We'll be getting a little bit of perspective on where we are now in the world and what's been happening over the last few months. We'll look at vertical literacy, which Otto has written a great article about, and see where we go with that. And we'll hear from you. So a lot of what we've been doing is holding a journey together. And in many ways, while it may have started with our co-initiation and aspirations, what we'll do now is turn it back to the field and hear from all of you, your prototypes. We'll do a moment of mindfulness after hearing some questions, and then we'll talk about the co-evolution of ULAB going forward.
Okay. So in terms of our journey to date, you'll remember, and if you look behind us on the board at the U, you'll remember that our journey started here in this room in September with the live session that co-initiated and launched ULAB 2019. And from there, we then started to travel down the left-hand side of the U. Many of you formed coaching circles, took empathy walks, you went on learning journeys. Many of you worked with social presencing theater as a tool for helping you to sense and co-sense your systems. We then came back together in October at the bottom of the U for a moment of collective presencing that we did through the resonance exercise and the stepping into the field of the future journaling exercise. And then from there, over the next few weeks, we started to travel up the right-hand side of the U. And many of you wrote to us and you shared your experience doing the 3D mapping, which helped to crystallize some of the seeds that were emerging from presencing. And then many of you joined us for the Zoom calls in November, where we shared those initial prototype ideas and got feedback from peers, which we then continued to work on over the last few weeks. So that's really the what of what we've been doing. To tap into sort of how we've been experiencing this process together, it's really helpful to go back to some of the visuals that Kelvy created during the live sessions. So here, looking at the co-initiating live session visual, a few of the things that really pop out to me certainly was in the left-hand side, that moment where we turned the camera back on planet Earth and on ourselves, and together we reflected on what we sensed and saw, and then moved into initiating, setting an intention together for our journey forward. We then, when we moved into the presencing, looking at that visual, I mean, you really see in the middle of the drawing and in the middle of our process that moment of stillness that we took to connect deeply and to connect vertically. And we did that in part through the resonance exercise, using generative scribing as a contemplative tool and a tool for collective presence. And then the last time we came together, the co-creating, even looking at the image here, you can almost feel the energy of moving into action together with the prototype clinic process in the middle. And something that really came across in all of the calls, all 8 of the calls, was this piece on the lower left-hand side, the importance of the community and the collective, a feeling of belonging to something bigger, and a safe environment from which we could find the courage to move into action. So that's the sort of overview of where we've been on this journey. We're now going to hand over to Otto in Berlin to give us a bit of a perspective on what's happening in for us as a global community and as a society. So over to you, Otto.
So as we work out the technical, still can't hear Otto. We'll give it one more second. But Otto's going to bring us in on some of what's been going on in the world. He's been doing quite a bit of traveling and collecting data and stories that he will be sharing with us. So we'll try one more time to see if we can get the audio back now. Yeah. So while we try to work on the audio, what we invite now, we're just gonna move things around a little bit to make sure we can get the tech working so we can all hear. But
Can you hear us now?
Yes. Okay. Great.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So apologies for the little tech problem here. So I'm glad we fixed that. And I wanted to, also say welcome kind of everyone here from our second site today, which is Berlin. So we are thankful for the Berlin Hub for creating space for us so we can co-create this event. Can you still hear us? And so what I wanted to share a little bit in terms of the bigger picture, I put a few slides together. So let me just go to that view. And can you see the slides? Very good. So a few key points. What has happened in the bigger picture, right? You probably all saw a few days ago, kind of the UNEP, the United Nations kind of environmental agency, published the emissions gap report. And here are the 3 numbers that really matter to us from that report. The first one is 1.5 degrees Celsius, which was the target in the Paris Agreement that we hoped to reach by the end of the century. Now, given the current developments, we will reach in 2040, which puts us collectively very close to, possible runaway points, to tipping points, kind of where the climate massively could destabilize. Secondly, in order to still reach the 1.5 degree target, in this century, kind of throughout the end of the century, we needed to cut reductions. We needed to cut CO2 emissions by 50% until 2030. And until 2040 to net zero. And that, of course, is the question on the table. If we want to reach the 2 degree target, we still needed to cut 25% by 2030. So those are the main numbers. And what is also described in the report, that there are certain developments that actually are good news, kind of that put us in a position to answer the question, is it possible to do that with a yes? And that particularly concerns the climate, the green energy, renewable energy, solar, the cost for solar and wind are falling much faster than originally anticipated. But that's, of course, only one key factor. And the other key factor that we surfaced in a recent session that some of you may have seen, kind of we did that in our monthly dialogues on transforming societies. You see here Chad Frischman, who is from Project Drawdown, the head of research operations. And what they asked themselves is how to reverse global warming. And they found 100 solutions that, if implemented, would do the job. So it's quite doable. 80 of these hundreds already have existing technologies. And they ranked them according to impact. So the most important ones are the top 20, right, with the highest impact. And what is so striking is that 12 of the top 20, you see that in the top right here, have to do with farm and food and land use. So that is by far the biggest factor, and yet that's the one thing no one is discussing, or so we are usually not discussing. So we are, of course, we know about sustainable mobility, and that needs to happen, renewable energy, and that needs to happen. But this is a big area where a lot actually can happen, but it's not communicated well. And I think that's where we as a community could make a big difference in the months, weeks and months and years to come. Another highlight, I would say, of the fall, kind of from the wider Presencing Institute, was this interview. Another one that you also find on our website. Both of these, if you go to our website, you go kind of to labs here in the menu item, and you scroll down and you see then, for example, under technology, Shoshana Zuboff, The Age of Surveillance, the author of the book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, very likely kind of the most important book that was published this year, because what she describes is the deepest systemic shifts that explain why we have seen over the past few years such an increase in the amplification of absencing. So you find that there, and that's certainly part of the conversation. When you go there, as you can see, there's also an excellent Guardian article that is summarizing that book, in a short piece. It's also very worthwhile reading. Another, I think, if you also go down to what really does it take when we not only look at how to reverse global warming, but also how to, address the biodiversity challenge. That, of course, brings us to three regions in the world: Amazon and Brazil, kind of Indonesia, the Coral Triangle, and then Central Africa. And of course, indigenous people who play such an important role in all these areas. And so we had this session with Melanie Goodchild last month, which is also around indigenous wisdom and a dialogue, really. And the starting point of that conversation is that she said, what we call 4.0, so the next stage of evolution of our big societal systems in the economy, in health, in learning, and well-being. What we call 4.0 is very much related to the essence of indigenous wisdom and kind of to their way of organizing. So it's a fascinating conversation, which is also worthwhile to be included as we continue this journey forward. And then the last point really is about how can we, because the bigger question, if we go back to the UNEP report, right, kind of the movement that we need to build, how can we build that movement? Is that even possible? And I'm just returning from Indonesia, and it is so interesting to see that something, kind of the work that started there 10 years ago, and mostly focused on very small projects and very small organizations with very small groups, that over time, by focusing on these small local routes, kind of something began to grow together that now kind of involves kind of several ministry, involved the whole cabinet. I'm just, returning from a workshop with the, several of the ministers and deputy ministers. And you see that in the top area, you have like youth action involvement with work with indigenous people, and then several key ministry focusing on key challenges that the country is facing. So it's really interesting that to see how a movement that's already there, in this case, is, through the ULAB and, theory inspired and systems thinking inspired work, is beginning to develop like a transformation literacy that is then applied in more and more areas, not only on a people level, but also on a systems level. And I think that's something we maybe also begin to see in other countries. And it should be a great source of hope for us. Because what I believe is already happening is that we see a massive global movement taking shape right now. And so that's not, we are just kind of part of this much larger global movement. But where we can add, I think, is kind of to support this movement in developing kind of vertical literacy, by which we mean transformation literacy, kind of that allows that movement to not only be reactive against all the issues that we face, but really bridge all three divides, kind of connect our deepest sources of who we are as human beings, and reshape our civilization, reshape kind of how we are operating from there. And the last thing I would like to share kind of from this fall, because it came out of a one-year training that we did on ecosystem leadership. So it was kind of a joint exploration. It was actually a co-discovery with 50 ecosystem leaders that we did throughout the year. And in the third and last module, kind of Katie Stubley and Judy Arts and myself and others, so we synthesized kind of many of these conversations that we had with this kind of concept of vertical prototyping. So, and we realized that if you work on an ecosystem level, prototyping takes place in a somehow a different version, something which we called vertical prototyping. I hope you can see that here. The vertical prototyping is really kind of an axis that starts with connecting to source, focusing on, supporting and creating the soil, and kind of from there, which is the holding space kind of for these initiatives, from there to develop the seeds, which then, develop into living microcosms that are supported through sensing and through stewarding through many people, and activated through kind of what's called here sun. Kind of that's a factor that really means kind of to articulate the larger aspiration that we have in the ecosystem, so the planetary healing and civilizational renewal. And then, of course, kind of the reflection, right? Seeing oneself, which allows us to iterate and iterate and iterate. So that's kind of an emerging, evolved concept of prototyping that is really a departure from the traditional concept of prototyping. And that kind of allows us to not only work horizontally, of course, which we also need to do, but also vertically around these dimensions, source, soil, seeds, and microcosms, as I described that. So hopefully you were able to see it. I'm not sure from our control monitor that was actually the case, but we'll provide kind of these images, and we'll have soon also kind of put some of that in some more coherent form of writing. So let me end with a quote that I heard in the last module, kind of a word from one of the members, kind of Shobi from Indonesia, and she, she said, this reflecting on the current moment where we are, she said, this is the moment I was born for. And when she said that, it really deeply resonated with me, because I feel what's beginning to happen now, what needs to happen in the next decade, as I mentioned at the beginning, and our potential role in that requires us to activate our action confidence and to really kind of operate from our highest potential. The real story that we are here for, I feel that I'm here for, is just beginning now. And my hope and also my intention for the next year is to really listen and attend to the larger movement that we are part of. And now with the question, what is our part that we can add to that larger picture that maybe collectively we can contribute? And one way of articulating that is vertical literacy, is kind of the capacity to activate not only our reactive response, but to activate our deeper intention that brought us here into this place and that brought us together. So with that question, I turn it back to Antoinette and Eva to Boston.
Thank you, Otto, and thank you everybody for just staying with and diving into some of what we've been talking about and moving through together. Really, that deepened place of tapping into our deeper sources of knowing, our reasons for being. And thank you, Otto, for taking us through some of your journeys and giving us perspective on where we are currently in this moment. And as we do this, we'd really love to continue to hear your questions. So as you're in Slido, if you're on the live stream with us there, you can put in any of the questions that you may be sitting with today. So maybe something came up for you around vertical literacy or around anything that you've been working with. We'd really love to hear your questions. And as we take them in, we'll at least get to a couple of them later in the session. And as we go forward as a community, one of the beautiful things that was actually shared with us in the beginning of the ecosystem leadership program that Otto mentioned by Katie is that we grow in the direction of the questions that we ask. So as we ask these questions, we may not get to all of them today, but the very fact of us asking them together is really what it means to be moving forward as a collective. And in order to hear more from all of you, we asked for your submissions around the various prototypes that have been happening. And some of you may have followed the 6 principles of prototyping in the course. You may have your own version of that, and you may have incorporated some of this vertical literacy piece as well. But either way, we've heard so many great stories, and wherever you are on your spectrum of prototype is wonderful. But here are some of the voices in a compilation video created by Rachel on our team.
Calling in from Dublin, California. My name is Hisako Pradhan.
My name is Jessica, and I'm the National Coordinator for Zambia, as well as Africa Coordinator for Ubuntu Lab.
This is Jens Oberender from the Cologne area in Germany.
Hello, my name is Agnès Mignani, and I live in France.
Hello, my name's Trisha Kirambule.
My name is Eric Tenernaikum, and I'm here from Montreal, Canada.
I'm Fernando from Colombia.
Hello everyone, my name is Frodo. I'm the founder of Crazy About Water.
My name is Gemma Jiang. My name is Stephanie Romero, and we're the co-hosts of the University of Pittsburgh's ULAB Hub.
Hello, my name is Ishwara. I am in Mendoza, Argentina.
Lakshmi Kennedy. I represent the New Future Society.
I'm a community energy activist working on a solar project called Lockleys Love Solar, which has grown out of 4 years of ULAB prototypes.
I come from Cambodia.
My name is Maria Antonieta Angarica.
And I'm Nancy Gutierrez. We are teachers from Universidad Metropolitana in Caracas, Venezuela.
Hello, my name is Carlos Lucio. I'm from Mexico.
My name is Joel. I live in Ottawa, Canada.
This is Erin
from Oaxaca, Mexico.
I'm Teresa from Malaysia.
Good evening from the UK.
This is Terro from Finland.
This is Jorge Sanin from Guadalajara and Jalisco in Mexico.
Hi, my name is Miklós from Hungary.
We have been writing letters with observations, feelings, needs, and questions, inviting to reflect and listening to different actors of our ecosystem in Lima.
My prototype is to spread kindness in our society.
One example is in Kolola. This was a woman who went through a disability temporarily, and during that moment she was able to go through the entire U process and developed a prototype where currently she is working with physically challenged women in the agriculture sector. These smallholder farmers are blind, some of them are widows, and they're being helped with mentorship skills and also with access to market.
My opportunity is to give awareness into body tensions and relaxation.
My prototype is about putting together a team to deliver skills and capacities with the notions of presence at the center.
My little seed to help leaders getting a more authentic and meaningful management style.
Our prototype seeks to address animal parasite resistance at the European level.
The prototype I'm currently working on is called Let Us Vote. It challenges the status quo of democratic participation of foreigners who don't live in their country of origin.
My prototype is whole systems embodied intelligence, learning and leading from the inside out.
How can I change the dynamic relationship between my brothers and I?
Prototypes such as improving student mental health, introducing entrepreneurship into the curriculum, and writing a book on innovative problem-solving case studies.
Some of our hub members are from the community with projects such as creating programs for cancer patients at yoga studios, making an app to support mindfulness practice, or creating neighborhood-based support for everyday necessities.
And my prototype is I'm holding a series of circles, grief circles, for mothers whose babies have passed away at any point in their gestation or right after birth.
Many of you will know that Extinction Rebellion was born here in Stroud, and this place is absolutely crackling and popping with goodwill for climate change and societal change. This is how much goodwill, people, has led to the setup of this place that I'm currently in, the Beacon, which is a centre for climate change activists here in Stroud.
And we are prototyping leadership. Currently, we are working in 9 villages, and each village has a community development leader. Our goal is to create a safe environment for our children, an environment where there is no trafficking, school bullying, domestic violence, and child abuse.
As part of our prototype, we have been offering powerful conversations in English.
Our challenge is to regenerate kelp forests at scale and help reverse climate change.
My prototype is how to develop humans to reach a more sustainable world.
We're grateful to all that have been involved because we have testimonials of many lives that have been changed, many lives that are never the same.
So just to echo the last part of that presentation, thank you so much to all of you who shared your stories with us. It's inspirational to hear about the work that you're doing and the change that you're working to make in the world. It also, by sharing your stories and by getting a window into the work that you're doing across contexts and across locations, it helps us to see ourselves as a global community. And as we found out in the last Zoom session, the last live session, it's a really important part of this work for all of us to feel a part of a community. It helps strengthen us and give us courage to move forward in our own steps. So thank you again. What we will do now is go from a broad perspective of what's happening in the community to a deep dive into one prototype which has been evolving over several years. And to do that, we're going to transfer back to Berlin and back to Otto.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm sitting here with Emma Stengström. She is a professor at Stockholm School of Economics and the director of Center for Arts, Business, and Culture. So thank you, Emma, for joining us here. One thing, I mean, you all know the trick about prototyping is something very simple, which is have a big intention and start really small, right? And one thing I have often noticed is, so even though you have a big intention, right, the prototype very often for quite a while, continues to be quite small, right? I mentioned in Indonesia, sometimes when we are lucky, it's growing into something much more significant. But the reality is, it's never a straight line. It goes through many, many iterations. And so at least that's how I've seen in many places. The other day, I was at the Stockholm School of Economics and was really astonished about all the radical innovations going on there. And then, Emma and I, started talking. And then I realized that actually we all, kind of the ULAB project, had at least a small role in that. So Emma, maybe share with us a little bit, what is it kind of that's emerging at the Stockholm School of Economics, and what were some of the seeds kind of that go back to 2015 that helped, you guys to move into that direction?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me, first of all. And I wouldn't say a small role, I would say a big role, even though we were a few of us in faculty that went through ULAB and worked with the exercises and really tried to dig deeper. And some of our colleagues, we would just make them read texts and discuss with them, more an intellectual approach. But we actually not only got inspired, but I would say we formed the whole track, and I'll soon come back to what it is, from Theory U and the whole kind of idea behind. That's how we framed it, and that's how we teach it. And it's much more than a small role, that's for sure. It's really been a major, I think, reform and rethinking of business education.
Rethinking around what lines? So what does some of that you came up with, what does that look like today?
It looks like what we did, we started in 2016. That's when we were up and running. We started earlier, but that's when we were up and running. What we did was that we're a typical like business school. We have about 300 students coming in every year for our undergrad, bachelor. And what we did was that we actually took every other course in the business school and made it smaller. We did have management behind us, otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
By a third, right? You shrunk everything.
Well, we shrank everything so we could put, it's a little bit different like the courses, but so we could actually put a track throughout the first 2 years. So we did that, and that is very much actually formed from Theory U, where we start with knowledge. The first semester is all about knowledge, and then we have a second semester that is really about systems. That's stakeholders, who is really doing what. And it's all focused on the global goals for sustainable development and sustainability. The issues we are talking about here, of course, that's the focus. So knowledge, and then the system where who's doing what. And then we have a whole semester about being, that's vertical literacy. It's all about vertical literacy. That's really, and I think that is the unique part in this program.
And I remember kind of every student at Stockholm School of Economics is learning how to meditate.
Yes,
is that true?
Of course.
Isn't that amazing?
It wouldn't have happened I'm talking about a movement here. Huh? There's something happening here, definitely. And every student too we call it bubble hopping, but it's really going on sensing journeys, learning journeys. They have to break out of their own business school bubble and go on empathy walks and meet and listen. And now I'm having like 300 reflections right now in my computer, and it's just marvelous to read them. It is. And then I should add, like, before we get into it, but the fourth semester, after that, connecting with the source, we go into expressing. That's really when they make projects that aim to make a real change in the world. They have to do that. And they do that for a whole semester, and that's where it's all expressing and it all comes together and where action takes place. But it's not going from knowledge trying to go to action, but it's really going through that deep development. And that's crucial.
And
what happens in...
Yeah.
No, but I think the whole kind of the different parts coming together, that is the thing. Like you couldn't, I mean, I've seen it because I've been traveling around the world too, looking at different business schools. And so many try to take a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of action, but they don't do the whole process. And I think that is really needed.
And so when I was visiting earlier, kind of this fall, I was also struck by what you said about the impact. I asked you, what's the impact now? And you shared some of the reactions in the business community, right?
Yeah.
So what is
that's
the
even
impact?
the best almost. And that's only the beginning, because we're having our third cohort this year. So of course, what happens, one thing that happens is that students also, they start pressuring business community. They say like, we don't want to work for you if you don't take these issues into account. You can't even come and recruit here anymore. So they are putting pressure, and of course the business community is also changing because of that, and the rest. It's not only business, it's also, I think, the public sector, and it's just like spreading. Yeah, and that's a fantastic part. And last week I was actually talking to the Swedish steel industry, all the Swedish steel companies, because they do a lot of development when it comes to sustainability, of course, but many of them lack, I think, that whole kind of process, the whole circle. And I think we could reach out much wider than we have done, but it starts here. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, what I'm noticing is two things, in terms of sustainability, right? A lot of talk, for example, here in Germany, very little actions. In Sweden, there's also talk and there's action, right? So I think there is something everyone can learn from. But we go back to the very beginning. So if you now, trace that to some of the roots, what is standing out there in hindsight? So what allowed you, because what you have been doing there is something everyone is talking about. It never happens, right? So it's like small groups discuss these things. It's never happening. What made it happen?
Several different things probably, but one thing, not being alone. We are a team. We're collaborating a lot. Would never happen if I had the idea and tried to change. I would still be fighting at the business school, but we were a team. We were also, I would say, an interdisciplinary team. I think that's very important. We are from economics, from business administration, sociology, philosophy. We add people from natural sciences. We have Johan Rockström, for example, on our advisory board. So he's been very helpful with bringing natural sciences. And then we work a lot with arts and humanities. That's also been crucial, because it's not enough with all the facts and all the numbers we need to touch upon. And there we're bringing the arts. We have a big art initiative that's connected that really helps to move forward and also to think in different ways when it comes to doing the projects. And then, of course, collaboration with business community. We have a foundation that's supporting us, etc. So collaboration is a big thing. Another thing I think is that it's really connecting all these different stakeholders, but dots. And I think that is where, for me, Theory U really helps. Connecting with source, but also with the knowledge, with the facts, with the business community, with different stakeholders, with really connecting all the dots. I think it's one of the things that's been very, very important. That also gives it a lot of, I think it's a dynamic process. We can add things. That's another important. It's organic in that sense. If something comes up and it's easy to add it into the program with this kind of framework. And that I think is important too. That's a movement that continues. We started, when you said first, we started in 2015 with the prototype, and I'm like, oh, it's still a prototype, it's still, because it's always evolving. And it allows it to do it with this framework. And then of course, it's wonderful to work with hundreds and hundreds of young students, I have to say. That's what's important.
Very cool. So thank you for sharing that. And I think kind of this story, for example, Emma, the story you're sharing and living, is another story that can give us a great deal of hope, because what it says is that when the crisis is increasing, right, and the crisis, which is the outdated curriculum of all business schools, right, that's very evident, right? And it's also, we see the damage caused by that, increasingly in our environment. And so as this kind of the crisis is amplifying, also the possibilities to facilitate the shift in relatively few years on a relatively profound level is also growing, right, at the same time. And yet it does require this shared container. It does require to not be alone. It does require kind of systemic framework kind of that allows you to bring all the people you need kind of on board. And it requires kind of the foundation in aesthetics, right, in creativity, without which, we can't really do a lot. So thank you for this inspiration. And I think kind of all those elements will be kind of much more, at hand, in many of the challenges we face globally. And so I think we can learn from what you guys have been doing a lot. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Otto and Emma. Emma, thank you so much for sharing your story. We'd like to turn it over to questions now and just hear what some of you are thinking about. What is sparking for you? What are you sitting with? And over to Tony.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. As always, it's really great and inspiring to read all your comments. We can feel your gratitude, your excitement. We are reading many reflections, many very interesting questions here. I'm working with Sarina and Rachel on the back end to try to select the most compelling questions to read them aloud here. We keep receiving the same question over and over again. In this case, Lucia asked, how can we reach the people who are not here yet, who are opposed to the ideas of ULAB or not interested or don't know or are even too vulnerable to access the ideas of ULAB? And as always, we say it's not about trying to convince others to join us. It's about listening with empathy and trying to understand and to feel what others are feeling and going through and experiencing, right? Again, it's not about convincing, it's about listening with empathy and together trying to find the best path to move forward as a collective. So that's one of the questions. We have been receiving dozens of them. There are even more complex questions like this one, right? How did this culture, the culture that we live in today, become so disconnected from the ecosystem, right? And we are not going to try to answer it right now. It's too complex, but we think it's very good for you to keep reflecting on it. What were the mindsets that brought us to live in this world that we are exploiting nature, we are exploiting each other, there's so many inequalities. So, so what brought us here? It's important to understand that in order to move forward. So we invite you to keep on reflecting on this, on the other questions that you can read on Slido, and of course, you can use Twitter and continue interacting with each other through social media. Again, and I'm going to pass it on to you to do a short mindfulness moment before we finish up.
And before I do the mindfulness, do you want to share anything about these questions that came in?
Sure. I think Lucia's question in particular comes up a lot about how do I bring this work out into the world, into my world, and a few thoughts on that. One, I do this work in a university, which is a system that doesn't change quickly, and certainly people have various levels of being open to this sort of change, and so the way that we've been able to sort of see and start to work with some of the cracks that will open to potential is simply by doing the work where we can. So for example, my role was in teaching, and I was able to bring the work into my teaching. And from that, it was able to expand to draw in people from the community, other people in the system, staff and faculty. And we're now, after 4 years, starting to have conversations about how we might be able to move this out more systemically. So the two things that really, I guess my learning from this has been, first to start where I am able to have influence, and the second was to have patience. And perhaps the third would be, in terms of the groups who may be too vulnerable to have access, is to put in the time to form the kinds of relationships that will then allow, make an opening to start to work together using some of these methods and tools.
Thank you, Eva. So now, just to invite us for a time to just settle into our own bodies and our own space, this little or kind of large space that we carry ourselves on the planet. And to do that, I invite you to find a comfortable seat wherever you are. And you can get your feet solidly on the ground if that's possible for you, or in a comfortable position. And then you can lower your gaze or close your eyes, whatever is in your practice. And just allow yourself to settle here. Feel in your feet the rootedness, the connectedness to this earth. And perhaps envision, as we did during our presencing moment together, the roots coming down into the ground. And on every inhale, deepening your sense of connection to the earth. And moving the energy and attention to the heart. Feeling the connection to all of us, these heartbeats, perhaps in the room where you're sitting, or perhaps to this larger global community. And in this space, connecting with your intention, your early intention for joining ULAB. And perhaps the intention that we co-created together. And as you inhale, connecting in with the roots, and as you exhale, connecting in with sky. And just recognizing our place as humans, connected to earth and sky, connected to each other. And all that we've been doing over this journey together. Connecting into that sentiment of, this is what I was born for. This moment, this time on the planet that we have together. All of those who brought us here, all of the work that was done, and for all that we are here to do. Knowing that wherever you are, whether you are on your own, in your own space, or in a hub in your region, that we are connected as a global community. And by connecting into this deeper place, we can begin to operate with a sense of purpose, a sense of shared purpose in this moment in time. So as we close this ULAB journey, we also are reminded that there's so much more possible when we're together. You can let your eyes open. Come back to the room that you're in, perhaps your screen. And just notice if you feel integrated into all that we've been doing. And as we do this, Tony is going to invite us into a shared practice to see what is coming up in our collective.
Thanks so much, Antoinette. It's always so powerful to experience, to feel this collective or global community we are part of, right? So again, as a final collective and real-time exercise, we invite you to go back to Slido. We are just gonna open a poll, and you have to respond in one word, to share in one word, In the spirit of this moment, what is emerging for us as individuals and as a community of practice? Again, what is emerging for us as individuals and as a community of practice? So I'm gonna open the poll. You're gonna see the question pop up there, and sharing one word, what is emerging for us as individuals and as a community of practice.
And as we do this, beautiful. No, we're just going to let this come in.
Well, this is so powerful. We see hope is the first word, right? Love, connection, possibility, inspiration, courage, action. This is fascinating. I mean, I know you can see it in the back end, but we are receiving like hundreds and hundreds of responses right now. You only see a few words popping up there, but it's really powerful to see that hundreds of you are right now writing down one word, right, to share with others how you are feeling. So thanks for that. This is
amazing
really
to see all of these words almost dancing around hope. Yeah.
But hope is for sure the winner. So that's very hopeful. That's very important. And over to you one last time, Otto, to finish up this wonderful session.
Love, hope, connection, inspiration. Was really wonderful to see that emerging from our connections and our time of being together here. And it reminds me of a personal experience I'm having now, actually, these days, which has to do with my own sources, kind of my own roots. So as some of you know, kind of I was born and raised on a farm here in Germany, in northern Germany. And 3 weeks ago, unexpectedly, my mother passed away. And this morning, kind of we brought kind of my father, who was also in the closing days or maybe weeks of his life, we brought him back to the farm. So it's also for me personally a time of loss and endings and beginnings. And so when we had the wake for my mother, and hundreds of people, so it's a farm, it's an organic farm that my parents turned 61 years ago from conventional to organic. And many young people. So when I grew up, we always had like 20 people around the dinner table. So they were always coming and going. And now when we did the wake for my mother, kind of all of these people from across Europe came back, and suddenly you realize how deep the impact of that small little place has been for how many people. And it reminded me that when something disruptive happens, like the passing of a loved one, the passing on, there are two ways we can respond, right? We can respond by turning away and separation, or we can respond by turning toward each other and deepening the connection. And kind of, I feel so grateful that, for this community, for our family, but also all the friends that keep coming, the latter has been happening. And it also gives me a lot of hope, really, kind of the central word that came up for what's to come for us, that, we as humans, kind of when we really face tough challenges and we turn towards each other, there's nothing we could not do. And I found it interesting that Eva, kind of in your research on the Scotland ULAB example, kind of the rise of action confidence as one of the most interesting findings. And I think that that can give all of us kind of a lot of hope, so that we have something to contribute, because the big challenge that I started earlier, that I shared earlier, for many people looks like almost ready to give up. It's too late. Kind of that's how it's in public often portrayed. But that's not true at all, because the moment we kind of rise to we awaken and we activate our action confidence, we as human, kind of when we awaken the human spirit, kind of when we wake up to what we are here for, there's nothing we couldn't do. And when at the funeral, kind of when, you know, all these people were sharing kind of what the time on the farm meant for them in their life, I realized kind of that there is like two parts of impact, right? So one is horizontal impact, kind of how you know, how far the people go that have been changed, and then what they do and in which places. But the other one is vertical impact, which means waking up to what you are here for, what you were born for. And that's, in this case, kind of where we deal with the social field, something we can do together. So on that note, we all know ULAB, the journey that's ending with this day, right? What does this ending mean? It's really just the beginning, right? The real story is just beginning now. And I want to close before turning it over to Kelby with 3 closing images here. The first one, I hope you can see now, is the invitation to ULAB 2X, right? So it's really the annual cycle, right, that we want to invite everyone into. So ULAB 1X, kind of something we are completing now. And the invitation is to take the prototyping ideas that we develop one way or another. And, you know, you will find your own way. But one infrastructure that we are offering is the ULAB 2X from February to May. And then in July 10-11, we'll have here in this place, we are kind of at the BUFA campus here in Berlin, which we hope will turn into a real U-School campus in the months and years to come. We will have a global forum here in July 10 and 11, which will be another possibility really to allow the larger ecosystem and movement that we are about to activate to sense and see itself. And then we also invite you to participate in these kind of monthly online sessions, which is an easy way to connect. But most importantly, we want to appreciate and all your the work you have been doing and co-convening and co-creating the very foundation of what makes ULAB meaningful. So all of you who are members of ULAB, and also kind of the whole support team that you see here, so it's impossible for me to really mention all the names, but there is a whole globally distributed community that works together to make all of this happening. So a great thank you to all of you. And lastly, we also want to thank our donors, kind of who have been supporting, kind of everyone who has been supporting that we actually can do that, because all of this, as you know, is offered for free. And of course, we also need to cover our own expenses. And with that, I also want to invite everyone to join into our annual crowdfunding campaign that we just kicked off. And what you see here on the screen, if you go to the Presencing Institute website, which is presencing.org, you see, I think for the first time, we have a real donate button on the top right. And there's a real reason why we have the donate button there, for the first time really visible. And the reason is we need your help. We need your help, and we need it soon, because we need to maintain, not only maintain, but also grow our operations in next year. And since we have been launching so many things this year, including the research summer school and many other great things, I have been a little bit in neglect of the fundraising. So we really appreciate kind of you pitching in and doing whatever you can do. That's kind of what also is kind of, it's a way of having impact. And it's also kind of a way we want, be that a big contribution or a small one, kind of, it's a way kind of we can all kind of participate in co-creating and amplifying the movement we know we need to make happen now. So presencing.org on the top right, it just takes a couple of minutes max, 2 clicks or so, and you will be on the page. Thank you very much. And with that, I give it back to Kelly, to Cambridge.
Okay, so as always, my heart starts beating when I have to start speaking after drawing. But I think my heart's beating also just with like gratitude for everything we've shared together and how hard everyone has worked. I know how hard the team has worked, and I know from the videos that we've seen how much people have put of themselves into this process, and even making it through to today is a really big deal because it's been a long cycle. The thing that really sits with me the most out of this session is this idea of the of when we turn towards each other, there's nothing we can't do. And this is the moment I was born for, Otto said, but I immediately thought this is the moment we were born for. This is the moment we are born for. And this idea of expanding our literacy, this transformation literacy, through deepening our confidence in the actions that we take and our sense of courage that we bring to that, and how we stay connected with source, and that comes up through our prototyping. That just to me seems like it, kind of like, and I know what a challenge that is in my own daily life and my own daily actions, and staying connected with others, as we've heard throughout the session, is really essential to that. And I don't think anything can happen by one person alone, but we know the power of what can happen when we work together. So thank you, everybody. I think I turn it over to Antoinette once more. Maybe the team comes over here for a final goodbye. And we also thank everyone in Berlin. It was great. We did it. It worked. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us, for being with us over the last few months, for tuning into what you are born for, and therefore what we are holding together. Have a wonderful beginning rather than an ending. Yeah. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to say hi to you before we go.
Hi.
Hey.
So big thank you to everyone who made this happen, particularly to the patient people here in the Berlin hub who had a very partial experience of the whole thing. Hopefully to the benefit of everyone else.